Welcome to the Hudson Show. Coming up, which fast food restaurant has the worst fries? Also, more evidence that scientists are just making up this dinosaur stuff as they go along. All that and more on the way next. It is the Hudson Show from RadioU. Let's get started with this. Do you feel that big franchise movies as of late have become more and more blatant, pure, and shameless fan service? If so, you're not alone. It is actually how things are going, because a new report in Variety has detailed how afraid big studios are of extremely impassioned fans of certain franchises, even though, as Star Trek's VP of Brand Development states, they understand that these fans are a really, really tiny subset of an already smaller subset of fandom. That's a quote from John Van Sitters. They still have gone so far as not just have focus groups with these dedicated super fans, but actually even go above and beyond. They will assemble specialized clusters of super fans to show their marketing and materials to before they're actually released, to make sure that they don't do anything that's going to cause their fans to retaliate, whether it be, I'm sure we can think of many examples, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Star Trek, Marvel, DC, the list goes on. Any big franchise that has any kind of history and canon, well, you don't want to upset the fans, the super fans, because they're the ones that are going to spend the most money on it, and so you have to cater everything to them. Of course, you may be a super fan thinking, yes, this is exactly what I want, but for the vast majority of people, what you wind up getting is kind of watered down movies that don't feel very original, they feel very predictable. And so what is the way around this? Well, it's simple. If studios could just start coming up with brand new things that don't have pre-existing canon, original stories that don't already have pre-existing fans that have stuff to be upset about with it because it's not what the original creator would have wanted, blah, blah, blah. They could obviously easily skirt around this, but this is easier said than done. And then how would they be capitalizing on all that precious intellectual property they already have? Doesn't this just feel, though, so indicative of so many of our problems that when it comes to just about anything in life, it is the very, very vocal minority, the very, very minority screaming from the rooftops on Twitter or whatever it is. And the people in charge have to be so afraid of whatever they say that they have to cater to those, even though that may not be what's best for the vast majority of people. I don't know what the answer is. In life, I know in Hollywood, and I know that there's no signs of that happening anytime soon, unless, my friends, unless we take matters into our own hands and start supporting things that are more original with our money instead of only going to see sequels on sequels on sequels. It's the Hudson Show. Well. Everyone was looking forward to this coming weekend of college football. All the marquee matchups we were going to get, and we still get to get them. But this past weekend, Vanderbilt and Arkansas and many others said, I see that. Minnesota, they said, I see that little fun weekend of marquee matchups you got. How about we screw it up? Vanderbilt, in an unbelievable upset of Alabama, takes down the number one team. If you follow college football like your entire life, one of the number one things, I think, or one of the last things that you would ever predict is that Vanderbilt would ever beat Alabama. And they did it this weekend. And it was no mistake. They played great. It was an amazing scene. Their quarterback, Diego Pavia, what a guy. Yeah, he said some cusses on TV. But other than that, he was an animal on Saturday, and I think just always. So shout out to Van. I love this weekend that we got several schools that got the chance to go ahead and rush the field and take down the goalposts. Vanderbilt did. That's what I love to see. That's, to me, what makes college football. So shout out to Vanderbilt for getting that done, for getting Arkansas for taking out Tennessee. Although Tennessee, they become my favorite team. The uniforms are just too good. They're too good. I know they're going to disappoint me because they always seem to disappoint their actual fans. So I'm sure I don't want to get too emotionally invested because, I mean, heck, they just lost to Arkansas. Miami narrowly escapes against Cal. Imagine what that would have been like if Miami got taken down. I don't know how they do it, how they've managed to survive twice in a row now. You can't keep dancing on that tightrope before eventually you fall to your death. But then again, with 12 teams making the college football playoff, even if Miami lost, they'd still be live. I'm looking at ESPN's Football Power Index, and I know this isn't like the rankings of who would get into the playoff. This is like their power ratings, right? I still don't know. How do you have USC 13th? How do you have, they just lost to Minnesota. How do you have, they've lost twice, Minnesota and Michigan. Michigan lost to, how do you have USC 13th? I don't get it. But man, that weekend, we thought we weren't in for a big slate of games this Saturday. Yeah, we were wrong. That was great. Hey, shout out to my neighbor over the weekend. Not the ones that recently moved in, although shout out to them too, sure. But I mean, the neighbor on the other side who saw me doing yard work and, I'll be honest, struggling. And he said, hey, you want to borrow my loppers? That's like the big scissors, if you don't know. And I was like, yes, absolutely. And I cut down so much stuff with those loppers. I don't have loppers. I don't have a lot of lawn grooming implements. And I don't know if anybody else is like this, but when it's hard to convince me to finally get up and do the yard work. It's not that I don't know it needs to be done. It's just that I sit there and it's like, yeah, but like it's outside and it's a lot of work to get it all. But then once I start, I am a man on a mission and I don't want to do anything else until I get the work complete. And so finally this weekend I was up getting the work complete and then he shows up, offers me the loppers, and it was game on. I chopped down everything that needed to be chopped down, sheared everything that needed to be sheared. And then I got to the point because I was having so much fun and I was like, I don't want to have to go asking for these again next time I need them. And I definitely don't want to go buy some. So I got to chop down anything I might ever want to chop down ever in my life. I've got to do it now while I've got these at hand. And so I was just looking for stuff. I was going through the neighborhood. I was doing it for other people because I was having so much fun chopping stuff down. So shout out to my neighbor. There's really no point to the story besides that I just was excited to be able to chop things down. It feels good. If you haven't done it, do it. Find some loppers. Ask your neighbors. Even if you don't have your own yard, find some. Just start chopping. It's therapeutic. I believe it is. And what's a Monday without our Monday tradition? The box office breakdown, letting you know what made money and what didn't in theaters over the weekend. Did you see anything? Let me know at 8772 RadioU. I'll tell you what did not make enough money to justify its existence over the weekend. That was Joker Folie à Deux, which is, of course, the sequel to the wildly successful Joaquin Phoenix Joker from several years ago. This one, not nearly as wildly successful. $40 million for a sequel to a movie that made $1 billion is not good enough. The reviews are actually awful from both critics and those who, the audience who went to see it. It has a terrible Rotten Tomatoes score all around. Some are saying, while Joaquin Phoenix portrays the Joker in the movie, the real Joker is you if you go to see it. It's supposedly that bad. I am just curious at this point. Of course, I did not get to go see it this weekend. And anytime a movie like this flops the way it does with $40 million, or you'd think that's a lot. It's not. It's not for what this is. I'm just so morbidly curious about how bad it must be, but then I'm not curious enough to want to spend my money to go see a bad movie. And so I will see it. I will see it because I need to know. And I like the first one, but I think a lot of people like the first one and they are not liking the second one. I think there's only one answer. There's only one solution, and that is bring back Jared Leto's Suicide Squad Joker. It's the only thing we can do. Number 2 at the box office was The Wild Robot, $18 million. Finally, something surpasses Beetlejuice. We did come in third place, making another $10 million. So let me know what you saw over the weekend at 8772 RadioU. I'll tell you, the last thing I watched is the Addams Family getting, a head start. Well, not even a head start at this point. It's October, seeing some Halloween movies. But it did give me, first of all, I wasn't as into the Addams Family as I thought I would be. I've never seen it before. It was fine. But just not super into it. But I don't know if that's the Addams Family's fault, because here's what I'm thinking. I have a theory. Everybody thinks at Christmas time, like it has to be the right Christmassy weather. And I don't know if that's true at Christmas, because let's be honest, for most of North America anyways, the Christmas movies are going to make it look all snowy and whatever. But most of us don't get snow. Like White Christmas is a special thing. You don't get snow very often in December. It's a lot of times not even that cold. So you're used to watching Christmas movies and not having the weather in the movie match up with what you're experiencing in real life. But I think for Halloween movies, it actually is important for the weather to be Halloween-y outside. I think it has to be leaves falling off the trees. I think there has to be like a spooky breeze blowing through, whistling through the trees. I think it's got to be like under 60 degrees. And if that all criteria aren't met, it's just not going to feel right watching a Halloween movie. I think this is, I guess my theory would be distilled down to this. The weather, the real weather outside is more important for a Halloween movie than it is for a Christmas movie. And I stand by that. I don't know how that theory can be proven true. I just think it's true. And you're not going to convince me otherwise. 8772 Radio U. Let me know what you think of my Halloween weather theory, and if you saw anything good over the weekend. Yesterday in the NFL, I'm calling it I've seen enough Sunday. There's several things I've seen enough of this NFL season, and as an NFL fan in general, that all came to a head yesterday. Number one, I've seen enough Sean McDermott clock management. Sean McDermott, coach of the Buffalo Bills, in many respects seems like a good coach, but when it comes to managing the clock, I don't know what this guy is doing. Yesterday against the Houston Texans, 20 seconds left. The Bills have the ball inside their own 5-yard line. Many coaches, the game is tied. Many coaches, most would run the clock out, go to overtime. How are you going to get 95 yards, or at least how are you going to get 60 some yards into field goal range and be able to win the game in 20 seconds from your own 5-yard line? You're not going to do it. But what does he do? He throws 3 passes. 2 could have nearly been intercepted by Josh Allen. And they have to punt the ball back to the Texans, who then get the game-winning field goal. Inexcusable. Can't do it. He's got to hire, like I said, a good coach in many respects. He needs to have a guy that's just his clock guy that goes, Sean, you can't do this. It's a stupid thing to do. And it cost him a game yesterday. I've also seen enough of Deshaun Watson. I think many Browns fans probably feel the same, that, yes, the offensive line is bad, but that Commanders defense is not good. And that didn't help Deshaun Watson whatsoever. Another bad game. The Browns need to make a change if they want a chance to save their season. Finally, I don't know if I ever really thought this, but I'm sure some of us did. I've seen enough of the Steelers as a contender. After winning their first 3 games, they lose the next 2. The offense is just not good enough. It's not going to be better if you bring in Russell Wilson. It's not going to be good enough if you bring in Devontae Adams. They've got weapons. It's just whether you have Justin Fields or Russell Wilson at quarterback, it's just not going to work. They very well may make the playoffs. They can go 9-8, 10-7 like they always do, but they're not a real contender. And I guess I said finally, but finally, I've seen enough, and I hit this point every season. I don't know if I've been hitting it early or not, but after 5 weeks, I've seen enough of this officiating in the NFL. In many respects, the officials do a great job, but in other respects, they do not. I'm just tired of the inconsistency. What's a pass interference on one receiver isn't a pass interference on another. In another case, I just, and by the way, this isn't just the NFL. If you watch any baseball playoffs too, the strike zone, what are we doing? Bring in the robot umps. I'm just tired of the inconsistency, and it is the one thing that makes the NFL, to me, very frustrating to watch. All that said, many people wondering, how do I feel about Aaron Rodgers right now after another loss to the Vikings? Look, I think some of the officiating, I'll say it came down to that, but I also think we'll bounce back. Aaron Rodgers is an old man. You put him in the rain in London, what do you expect? He's like 40 years old. Come on. But he'll bounce back. They got the Bills next week. Sean McDermott will probably screw it up, and Aaron Rodgers won't even need to do all that much. Which fast food restaurant serves the worst fries? This is after Eat This Not That, a popular food blog, had their critics actually rank 13 different fast food fries. And I'm telling you, the bottom two, one to me, completely accurate. The other is actually a shocker. So what are people saying as far as the worst fast food fries? Regina says Steak and Shake. I know there's a lot of hate for Steak and Shake. Regina says, I don't like when you have to grab several at once because I like to eat quick when I'm hungry. The fries are too small, according to Regina. Well, admittedly, Regina, Steak and Shake was not one of the 13 fries that they tried in this, but I know the Steak and Shake fries are not popular. I actually think they're kind of good, but I feel like I'm in the minority on that. Stephanie says, I love Chick-fil-A, but their waffle fries are bleh. No flavor to them at all. I'm with you, Stephanie. I think Chick-fil-A waffle fries are way overrated. We don't like the fries. We like the sauce. Now, that said, Chick-fil-A's waffle fries came in about near the middle here. They actually showed up at number 5 out of the 13 that were tried by these fast food critics. But I agree with you. D says Brahms, which admittedly I've never gone to, but I'm looking at a picture of Brahms fries, and they seem to be crinkle cut, which of course is the inferior kind of fry. But of course, Brahms also a little too regional for them to be considered in this taste test of the 13 fries. A few other responses. Dylan says Arby's curly fries. They're either super greasy or dry. Plus, why curly? I just want normal fries. Dylan, get out of here. Get out. Get out. This is a show where we support Arby's curly fries because they're great. And by the way, where did they show up on the list? Number 3. Yeah. The critics agree with me that the Arby's curly fries are good. And finally, Rachel says Sonic's fries, always too bland. Rachel, have you had the new groovy fries from Sonic? I have. They're okay, but they're basically a glorified curly fry. They showed up at number 10, near the bottom of the list. Now, I'm surprised nobody said either of these so far that I've seen. The very worst fry on the list, according to Eat This Not That and their food critics, was Arby's crinkle cut. Yes. Why do they even have those? I guess for Dylan, but the crinkle fries at Arby's, we don't need them. We don't need them, especially when you already have the curly fries that are so good. But they came in, and the food critics agree. They came in at the very last. But the other one, this is a shocker to me. Admittedly, I've not had these. In-N-Out. Surprising that In-N-Out's fries, I just thought that you weren't allowed to criticize In-N-Out at all. But they showed up at number 12, right near the bottom of the list. At the top of the list, you might be wondering, what are the best fast food fries according to food critics? McDonald's was number 1. Hard to argue with that because to me, the test of a fry is if it's actually a good fry, would you eat it without sauce? And I never put sauce on McDonald's fries. So that's a deserved number 1. Number 2, I don't know about this. Wendy's fries, they're okay, but they really are superior with sauce. By the way, this is the other surprising thing. Five Guys came all the way in at number 9. Now, those are fries that do not need sauce, although I do like to toss vinegar on the plain ones or get them Cajun. But once you're getting them Cajun, that kind of counts as sauce and it kind of doesn't count. So I guess I understand. Are you ready to get rid of the best before and sell by dates on your food and other items? Because the state of California is. They've just passed legislation that by 2026 will mean that all food manufacturers have to phase out the best before and sell by dates on their items, and instead we'll have to replace it with something else because supposedly best before and sell by dates are too confusing. People don't know what they mean, and according to California's legislature, are throwing food out before it actually should be thrown out. It's still perfectly fine to eat because they're confused by these dates. I don't know if that's really accurate. I mean, perhaps. Are you confused by the best before and sell by dates? You may be wondering, well, if they're phasing those out, what are they replacing them with? The recommendation is that best before will be replaced with best if used by, which seems like they mean the exact same thing and none is clearer than the other. And they'll replace sell by with use by, which sure, I think it's more helpful as a consumer if it tells me when I need to use it by than when I need to sell it by, because I'm not buying it to sell it most of the time. So imagine you're on a flight from Sydney to Tokyo. Sounds pretty nice, right? But then imagine that the in-flight entertainment system is dealing with some issues. And with that said, everyone on the plane is forced to watch the exact same movie. Already, it starts to sound a little bit like a horror movie from days gone by, a strange past where you couldn't choose what you wanted to watch on a plane. And Sydney to Tokyo isn't exactly a quick flight either, so you're stuck there for a while. But it gets worse. Imagine that movie that everyone's supposed to watch is the Dakota Johnson, Sean Penn drama Daddy-O, which, oh, by the way, is rated R. This actually just took place on a Qantas Airlines flight where Qantas Airlines is now having to apologize because supposedly unbeknownst to their flight crew, Daddy-O has some brief graphic nudity as well as many other things that you don't want seen on screens. Possibly anybody, but particularly if there's any kids on the flight, which of course there was, it became very inappropriate very quickly about an hour into the film. Now, the flight crew's excuse is, well, a few individuals convinced us that, because we had to choose the movie for everybody, that they wanted to watch Daddy-O, which is believable in a sense that, if you've never seen a movie before, even if it's rated R, you don't know what that really means. You don't know what's really in it, how inappropriate it may be for a wider audience. Who's even going to be paying attention? But what's hard to believe is that anybody was like, we need to watch Daddy-O, the Dakota Johnson, Sean Penn R-rated movie. Who's even heard of this movie before? Well, now we all have, and not in the best light. And Qantas is having to make some difficult apologies and probably make it right. And also, I'm sure some are forced to have some awkward conversations in the aftermath of this movie being shown on a flight. You were probably taught growing up that dinosaurs were wiped out by an asteroid. If you paid close attention, you might remember that dinosaurs were wiped out by an asteroid that struck what is now the Gulf of Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. Well, that's what we were taught. But apparently that's not the case. Scientists at Scotland's Heriot-Watt University are now claiming that you cannot blame that one single asteroid that struck the Gulf of Mexico for the demise of dinosaurs. In fact, there was a second asteroid that they now claim struck the planet off of the coast of West Africa. The two asteroids are to blame for the dinosaurs' extinction that both struck Earth around the same time. Now, I may not be the smartest tool in the shed, but you're telling me that not one but two asteroids happened to strike the Earth at right around the same time? What are the actual odds of that? Because as long as we've been recording history, we haven't gotten one really huge asteroid that was able to wipe out all life on Earth. Forget about two at nearly the exact same time. This is conspiracy theory level stuff here. There wasn't one shooter, there was two. It was the grassy knoll. What are we talking about? Listen, I've said this a million times. I'm not saying dinosaurs didn't exist. I'm just saying it's really easy for scientists to make up a bunch of stuff about them. And what are we supposed to do about it? Inflation still running rampant, at least in some areas, including the Mega Millions, where officials have just announced that starting in April, the price of a Mega Millions ticket is on the rise. Big time. Right now, it only costs $2 per ticket to play the Mega Millions. Starting in April, going all the way up to $5. That's a massive increase. Now, they say they are combating that. They're raising the prices, but the idea of raising the prices is to will result in improved jackpot odds and allow them to offer bigger prizes overall. And you should have a more likely chance of winning. Oh, why? Because a lot of people can't even afford $5 anymore to play. So your odds have to increase. I mean, this is just actually ridiculous. $5 a ticket to play Mega Millions? What do they think? We just won the lottery or something? How are we supposed to afford this? Colossal Biosciences. They are a company that claims they are very close to bringing back some famous extinct animals. Of course, the mammoth is one of their top targets. They say they're very close, well on their way, is their words. Also, Tasmanian tiger and the dodo, which already that sounds threatening enough. But their CEO recently, or their chief science officer, I should say, recently came out with some comments about other animals. Now that things are going so well with those three, she's got other animals she's setting her sights on, including an animal called an Arctodonus. If you didn't know, it's a giant short-faced bear. It is so big that it would be basically stand the size of a human man while on all fours. That's not even when it's standing up on its back legs, as bears like to do right before they're about to attack you. She also wants to bring back the giant beaver, which is 5 feet tall. They call that Caristoides. Why does all the animals we have to bring back from the dead giant? That's what I'm concerned about. Can you imagine how chaotic it would be? Okay, we bring back the mammoth, and now you have to worry. You're driving through the plains. Bison aren't bad enough, which I'm glad we're bringing them back, getting their numbers back up. But imagine the delays you could have driving on the highway and a herd of bison comes along. Forget about a herd of mammoth. Think about the insurance you're going to have to pay for your house and your car if there's mammoths just roaming about. And then you want to add a even bigger bear to the mix. Listen, I'm fine with bringing animals back from extinction. I just think we need to shrink them all. If we can't keep them as pets, they're too big. You know, one of the things we're always told about AI, the reasons to not worry that it's going to take everything over one day or whatever, is that AI can't teach itself anything. It can't alter its own code. In other words, if we just stop messing with AI right now, there's no shot it would be able to advance any further than it is now. It wouldn't be able to answer any new questions we give it, solve any new problems, because it can only do what we tell it to do. That is what we're told about AI. And I guess that's in some ways reassuring that without humans intervening and adding new information, AI will just stay the way it is. You ever think we're that way as well? Where, we can kind of learn new things, whether it be from other people, but we're still limited in our information as well. Just like AI is limited to what's already been input into it by humans, we also are limited to the information that's really already been input into us by the world. And that will always limit us. Our intelligence and our ability to solve problems in our lives is always going to be limited to what the world can offer. Unless there's someone that can come in and change the code, add new information in. I'm talking about Jesus. God is ready to come in and be like the AI programmers that are constantly helping AI grow and evolve and learn to do more. God can teach you to do more than the world can. The world has limited information. It only goes so far, and it's going to give you the same answers to different problems over and over and over again. But Jesus will come into your life and add something new, add something different, and change what you've always thought about certain problems, because that's just what the world says. This is what you do. Or you, and in this one, you can't even do anything. No, don't listen to that. Listen to Jesus. Let him solve some problems for you, teach you new ways to do things. If you want to know, if you want to experience what that's like, start talking to God right now. You can do it wherever you are. Say, hey, Jesus, I need some new problem solving help. I need some answers that the world hasn't been giving me. And I want you to show me that. He can. And if you want to know more, RadioU.com/free gift is a great place to start. We call this love them or leave them. Whenever you've got relationship issues you're going through, you know where to turn. Let us know here on the Hudson Show. We'll see what we can do to help. In this situation, we've got a guy who says, my girlfriend and I had been planning a relaxing trip for just the two of us until recently, when she casually mentioned she invited a female coworker friend of hers to come along. It caught me off guard since we never discussed bringing anyone else. Her friend's going through a tough time with her family, so I do understand, but I feel like it changes the entire vibe of the vacation, and also feel like it'll be weird for her to be the third wheel. When I suggested canceling the trip and even offered to stay behind so we could help her friend with the family situation, my girlfriend got defensive, called me selfish. Now I'm stuck trying to figure out if I'm being unreasonable or if my concerns about our trip being altered are valid. What should I do? 8772 Radio U. This is a tricky one. We need some good advice for our guy who's got a vacation up in the air. I imagine time may be of the essence. I like Brian, who said, if I was him, I just invite a guy friend and it'll be a week-long double date. I like Brian, the kind of the passive aggressive. That's like the, what is that? Like the Curb Your Enthusiasm response. Like, oh yeah, see how you like it. The trouble is that she might just be like, okay, cool. And then it's actually nothing is romantic about it at all, because then she winds up hanging out with her friend, and you wind up hanging out with your friend, which could still be fun, but it's obviously not what you had in mind. Brian does say, in all seriousness, he has a right to be upset with the plan changing without him being involved. I think that's fair to say. Dylan says, it seems like a red flag when the person trying to guilt trip you into getting out of a romantic trip is your actual partner. With you, Dylan. The whole tone of this all seems off. Taylor says, I get it, but her friend might really need this. Could you compromise by having part of the trip with her and the other part just the two of you? I don't know. That's a tough line to walk. I'm sure that you want to be sensitive to the friend's situation, and if she really is going through something, why does it have to involve her tagging along on a romantic vacation? I just don't understand why that's the only solution to her friend's problem. Avery says canceling might be a bit extreme. Just tell her exactly how you feel about needing time together. Communication is key. It's always communication when it comes to relationships. And then Alex says, I'd feel the same. It's like having a +1 at your romantic dinner. Boundaries need to be clear, and she definitely should have asked before inviting anyone. That's so true. It's not just that she wants to bring a friend along. It's that she invited the friend without saying anything to you first. This is, to me, red flag central. On the Hudson Show, vacations are sacred. You don't mess with them. It's supposed to be a romantic trip. If you were planning just the two of you, if all the accommodations were made, just the two of you, then it should just be the two of you. And you have to find, you've been very accommodating too, saying that you are willing to cancel the trip and stay behind if her friend really needs this. I'm getting to me, and look, this isn't a reason to possibly break up with your girlfriend just over this, but it is red flag central that this needs to be sorted out, and it can't just go down as, all right, the three of us are going on vacation, because that doesn't make any sense. She just walked all over you if that's what happens, and you just cannot let that. That's just not, it's not fair. It's not right. And so you're being very accommodating, offering to stay behind, cancel the trip or reschedule or whatever. I think that's the right thing to do. If no other option is a no-go, then I guess canceling the trip is what you're going to have to do. You might think the price is going down at Disney would be met with a round of applause, but apparently among Disney fans, at least, that is not the case. Disney World recently announced that they have a special deal for 2025 where you could get a 3-night, 2-day theme park package from February 26th through June 30th. And that includes the stay and everything. And it's a $200 discount. That seems exciting. But what people trying to book it are finding is it's either so restrictive that you can't actually select almost any room, or it's already been booked up either way for that period of time, which also February through June isn't exactly prime time to be going to Disney, right? It's during the school year. I'm sure that they probably black out the dates that would be spring break. So it's just tough. And then you also think about too, you save $200. That feels like a lot of money, but not when you're going to Disney World. It's not $200. That's enough if you're a family of four to buy you what? Maybe 2 meals inside Disney World? Maybe. It's Disney just cannot win right now. They're basically just admitting it. They're saying, other people are going to go to Universal Studios more because they got more new stuff. And people just can't spend on vacations, whether it's the Disney World or otherwise. Nobody can afford it anymore. So I guess their strategy is, why even try? Thanks for listening to The Hudson Show. Please don't forget to rate and review the podcast.